It's been a long time coming, but finally, we booked our first drummer. You're listening to Third Song In with Chris Derrickson and Tom Polachek, and special guest Bret Figura. Listen all the way through to the end of the episode for some new music from Bret. We are very proud to have join us for this episode Bret Figura. He's a musician, a producer, graphic designer, and a musical hired gun here in the Joliet, Illinois area. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me, Tom.
I do want to let our listeners know, because they don't hear the dulcet tones of Chris Derrickson at this point. Chris was unable to join us for the interview, but he will be joining me later for some of our closing segments, including the ever important playlist picks. Until then, I want to introduce you a little bit, Bret. I'm not going to list every band. I asked you to give me a little bio, and I counted a minimum of 20 different musical outfits that you have either been a member of or are currently performing with. So there's a lot of them. I will say that I first became aware of you and first saw you perform as a member of Stone City Stragglers. Mm-hmm. And that was roughly 30 years ago at this point. You guys actually played at my 10th wedding anniversary party.
Wow, really?
Which was outdoors.
Okay.
And yeah, and I got to admit, primarily because I was pretty hammered, I'm not 100% sure you were there. I don't know if he had everybody, but it seems to me like you were there. So in this list of 20 different bands, starting, I'm going to assume this is a chronological list, starting with a band called Outlaw.
Yes.
Which appears to have been a hair metal band or a rock band. I'm going to assume in the late 80s, 90s, early 90s, maybe. Am I off?
It was early 90s in high school. It was like my sophomore year, I think. Freshman or sophomore year of high school. I think I was 15 when I first joined the band.
So when I go through the list of all of these bands, all these different musical groups, combos, what have you, are those all bands that you've played drums for? Do you play any other instruments professionally or with these other groups?
Yeah, so all that stuff kind of on that resume over all these years are bands that I have played drums or percussion on. Yeah.
And is that what you, as a student, when you were 15 or I'm sure younger, did you start out on the drums or elsewhere?
I started out begging my parents for a few years for drums. My dad is a drummer, and my mom is a guitarist, and they had a wedding band. And I never really quite got to experience and see them perform it with this wedding band, because by the time I got kind of old enough to be interested in music, they were kind of done with that.
Right.
My mom would play around the house and things, but my dad had his drum set packed up and stuff. But eventually they caved and some sticks and a practice pad. And after some time of realizing, I think that I was sticking with it, I think I was about 12 or 13 when I actually got some drums.
And did you start out completely teaching yourself or having your dad teach you, or were you taking lessons from someone at that age?
So when I first started, my dad taught me a couple of things, which I would pound around on the practice pad on. But by the time the drum set came around, which was shortly thereafter, I was immediately self-taught. So I was listening to stuff on the radio, whether it was like The Loop or CKG or cassettes that I had and my brothers had. I would record stuff off the TV, from on TV or whatever, and play along.
Now, your parents obviously musicians. Are your siblings? How many siblings do you have?
I have two brothers.
Two brothers are older, younger? Where do you stand in the order?
Both older, each 3 years apart. So I got a lot of musical information from them, from my parents, and mostly my uncles on my dad's side, because they were musically involved too.
So did your brothers, were they musicians as well? Did they play instruments, or was it more, listening to their CDs or their cassettes or that kind of?
Their CDs and cassettes, them and their friends were all music lovers. So
Yeah.
I got everything from, like, my oldest brother had the most eclectic taste, where he would listen to anything from Madonna to Metallica and Accept and Dio and, all that stuff. Anything in between, if he enjoyed it, he had no problem listening to it.
Well, that seems to have rubbed off on you based upon the list I have in front of me, because I mentioned your first band looks like it was kind of a hair band situation, but I see a jazz band, I see indie rock, I see experimental jazz, I see novelty rock,
Yeah.
reggae, calypso, alt country. I know you're very good Americana music drummer, because that's what I've listened to you do the most.
Well, thank you.
So I take it that probably came, or a lot of that came from all of the different music that your brother was exposing you to.
Yeah, it was them and it was my parents. I mean, on my mom's side of the family, there was country that I heard from my grandfather. I had gotten good advice both from my dad, who's said basically, learn any and all genres because you'll always work.
Yeah, that's the thing I noticed. And I mentioned it in my introduction, but you seem to be kind of a hired gun. I mean, again, so many different outfits that you've played for, so many that you currently. I mean, the list of bands that you're currently working with, or performers anyway, is it looks like it's about 8 or 10, if not more, different genres, different people. It does sound like you are in demand.
Well, yeah, right now, not quite 8 or 10. That would be crazy, I think.
Okay.
But I am, we've got the Righteous Hillbillies, the Dan Doherty Project. I'm in a music collective called Dan Gogana, the Dan Gogan Band. I am also
I see Third City
Brass Band,
which is cool as hell, because that looks like it's a second line band.
Yeah.
I love that stuff, man. That is so cool.
And then I think the last thing that's a studio project that hopefully the album will be coming out soon is a project called Sadie and the Stark. And so that is in like the mastering phase and hopefully getting finished up.
It definitely sounds like you can stay busy playing music if you want to.
Yeah. And there's a couple, to your point, there are a couple of other things on the back burner that I have forgotten to add to that list. But,
yeah, see?
Yeah.
Just in terms of background then, you talked a little bit about starting with music. Did you grow up here in the Chicagoland area?
Yeah, so I was born and spent early years in Markham area.
Gotcha.
And we lived there. My parents owned a hardware store and gas station and repair station out there. And then it was about, I think, 1984, we moved out to Frankfort.
And Frankfort is in, primarily anyway, in Will County, Illinois, with Joliet's the county seat of that area. And looking at the list that you gave me, you played in the school band. Looks like you played in the marching band.
Mm-hmm.
I know from experience with my law partner that saying that you're involved in the percussion ensemble means that you put hours and hours and hours into those high school organizations. His son is a senior and has been doing those things for years. And I cannot. It's amazing to me the amount of hours that he puts into both the marching band and the percussion things.
Yeah,
it's a whole nother life. It sounds like
it's a ton. It is a ton, and it helps provide a great education and discipline and language. You get to really learn your instrument and how to be a well-rounded musician as a whole. And if you want to continue pursuing it, the discipline it takes to reach a higher level.
When you were in high school, did you play in rock bands or pop bands as well? Because again, my own experience, or at least what I've heard kind of secondhand through my partner's kid, is he hasn't done a lot of that, but it's primarily because he spends so much time at school practicing that there's almost no time. If you want to actually study and go to class and stuff, it's hard to to fit
Yeah.
everything in.
Yeah, it's tough to juggle, but I did do the one hairband thing, Outlaw, that lasted for a couple of years, and that was myself, and I was 15 at the time, and the lead guitar 16, and then the bass player and the singer were in their 20s. They were out of high school.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. That's interesting.
Yeah. And then the second band that I was in during high school was a band called Gowhead, and that started off as a trio and grew from there, which was bass, guitar, and drums. And then
with those, oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say from there it grew into several iterations with different members and went on for years.
When you played with those two bands, were you getting paid? I mean, were you going places where you get paid for a gig, or was it mainly kind of a play school events or friends parties and that kind of thing?
Yeah, it was mostly just playing events and doing stuff for fun, or a charity every once in a while. But it was definitely more like art for art's sake and trying to be a rock star sort of thing.
Right, right.
And my dad, even back then, and my parents, who were in a working band, suggested that I at least try to do one on the side or something. But I was too busy like trying to make art.
Sure. Which it sounds like you're still doing.
Yeah. I didn't learn the money making lesson until I had kids, and I was like, I got to start making money doing this.
And how many kids do you have?
I have 3 boys.
Oh, no kidding. What are the boys' ages?
So we have the youngest is going to be 14 in a like a week or so, and then I've got 16 and 18.
Yep, that's a lot going on while you're also trying to play gigs and rehearse. I can't imagine fitting all that in at the same time, along with, of course, a job.
Yes.
So speaking of which, tell me a little bit about your work, because it sounds like that is also creative in nature. What are you doing?
So I work at Moraine Valley Community College in their marketing department. So they have visual needs for marketing to the community at large and within the interior of the college, events and other things happening.
And so you're involved in the visual art side of that then?
Yeah. So creating various products, whether they're digital or print or otherwise, and trying to keep things on brand and just, help in any way there.
Excellent. How long have you been working for the university?
I've been there a decade. Yeah, prior to that, it was 15 years in publishing at the Star, Southtown newspapers, and under the Sun Times. Also did stuff with the Sun Times.
Interesting.
And so I was.
Did you work on the marketing side there as well, or what did you do for the newspaper?
So I worked in page layout, and I was an art director in various sort of fashions, depending on different departments I kind of worked for and pieces I was working on. So I managed different creatives at different points and oversaw branding and how pieces were made and made sure that they got to print on time and all that sort of thing.
Did you study art then after high school as well, or in high school or throughout that time?
Yeah, so I started art both in high school and then went on to do it in college. And initially I was going to major in music. Mm-hmm. And my audition for the music department did not go very well. Oh. Yeah, and so the head of the percussion department was just like, had let me know of their interest, but do I have any other talents and what else am I interested in? And I had expressed that I'd really studied art, in high school and all my life. And he suggested I go over there and talk to the art department. So that's where I became a illustration, graphic design major, music minor.
Oh, interesting. And where was that? Where'd you go to college?
Western Illinois University in Macomb.
The Leathernecks.
That's right.
Interestingly, the same partner with the kid who's a drummer has another son who just graduated from Western.
Oh, right on.
And was in their marching band. He didn't study music, but he was 4 years in their marching band, played trumpet. And, he's a big fan of Western Illinois, I know.
Yeah, I did the marching band for a couple of years there.
Yeah, it sounds like it's a nice tradition there. It's not they don't necessarily get a lot of people at a lot of games, but
No.
sounds like the band has a lot of fun while they're there.
Absolutely.
So before I forget, I want to
Yeah.
make sure that we tell our listeners where they can find your work and where they may find you playing live. Do you have any plugs that you can give me to let them know where to look for you?
Absolutely. So you could find original music that I've been working on Bandcamp or bretfigura.bandcamp.com. And I've got a YouTube channel and an Instagram and Facebook. I've got a Facebook group where I share what new projects I'm working on at any given point. And so that's any and all things that I'm working on and involved in or being a hired gun for. I try to share out there and let people know.
Cool. And as I understand it, you've got some gigs coming out.
Yep.
I know you play with the Righteous Hillbillies, and then you also play with the Dan Doherty Band, as I understand it.
Correct.
And there's an event coming up on May 16th in Lockport, Illinois at the Roxy Theater that I plan to attend. I've missed the first couple.
Great.
But it's called CBAM. Is that the way how people refer to it?
Correct.
So all caps CBAM. It's a music and comic art event in downtown Lockport, and I like that little stretch of Lockport there, the street.
Yeah.
And I think that from everything I've heard, because this will be maybe the third or fourth
something like
CBAM,
that.
I think.
Yeah.
And that's on May 16th. Do you know what time that starts? I don't have that on my list here.
I want to say it's 6 or 7, something like that.
But I know it's like 4 or 5 hours, and there's lots of comic book artists and creators and bands playing all kind of at the same time. Sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah, it'll be the Dan Doherty Band, and actually a band that my oldest son is playing drums for is opening.
Is that right? No,
Yeah.
That's really exciting.
Yeah.
So I don't forget, we'll put the link to that as well to the Eventbrite page for that event so that people can find it.
Thank you.
Hopefully get to see you play. So do all three of your kids play instruments or just the oldest son?
So the older two both play drums and percussion. The youngest one, he's interested in cooking.
Nice. All right.
Cooking and boxing. He's outside right now, probably punching a bag.
That's an interesting combo, but
Yeah.
that's awesome. That's really cool. One of the things that I wanted to talk to you about, and I've alluded to it a couple times now, but I have a real good friend who is also a drummer. He plays drums in a number of bands out in Eastern Pennsylvania. And it seems like if he wanted to, he could play every single night of the week because somebody's always, texting him or calling him and saying, "Hey, we got something coming up. Can you play here? Can you play there?" And I get the impression that you kind of have a similar experience. How does that work when you're a known commodity? People know that you can play well, and apparently play practically any kind of genre of music.
Well, as long as I have the spot on my calendar to do it, I try not to say no. I got good advice when I first went to college from my percussion instructor, to try not to say no to a gig. His name was Richard Cheadle. He's a great instructor, and he also said that, even if you don't feel prepared for it or that you're not worthy of the gig, obviously the person who's asking you thinks you can handle it, so take it. So I've taken many of the things that I did not think I was prepared for, and everything works out in the end because it's a matter of like putting the work on the front end. So when I'm getting offered something that might be new, I definitely start doing research or let's use the Righteous Hillbillies for an example. They needed a drummer relatively soon a few years ago for upcoming gigs, and I had to learn nearly 40 songs.
Wow.
40 songs from scratch, from the ground up, and a lot of them were their originals. So it's not like I was learning a ton of covers. I was learning some covers, but so it's a matter of a lot of times I'm asking the person for a YouTube playlist, and I'll listen to the playlist in the car and while I'm working at work, and sort of mentally visualizing what I'm going to be doing. and I could kind of like go into my head and kind of visualize how I'm gonna apply these parts to my kit and what I'm gonna do.
In that situation, is there also are there tabs? And I'm not sure I'm using the right term. My
Sure.
do
Like
you have
charts.
stuff on charts? Excuse me. That's the
Yeah,
word I was searching for. Were there already charts for most of the songs that they were playing?
yeah, no, typically I'm not getting that sort of thing. I typically create my own charts. So after I get familiarized myself with them and I'm listening to them like I was talking about before, I'll chart them out my own way. I have my own little shorthand. If there's particular rhythmic figures that are important hits, I'll write those out. Uh, but for the most part, it's writing out the form: verse, chorus, verse, verse two, bridge, that sort of thing. And I'll put those all in a folder, and I'll bring if there's time, I request a couple of rehearsals if we can do it. I like to be prepared that much. But I've done gigs without any rehearsal at all.
Is that right?
And it can be rough sometimes depending on how difficult the arrangements are. And there's been other gigs where there's intentionally no rehearsals because it's all improvisational.
Right, right.
Those are a lot of fun. I enjoy.
That's the stuff that would scare the hell out of me.
Yeah.
My experience as a musician is extremely limited. I play a little bit of harmonica, and I've taken some lessons, Old Town School of Folk
Yeah.
Music type stuff. But those all come with tabs, and the one thing I've never been able to graduate to is just playing with other people, which is the one thing that seems like the most fun, but
Yeah.
it scares the living hell out of me.
Yeah, so it's important as the drummer to try to know as much as possible going on to the gig. I had to do the first several Hillbillies gigs with my charts off to the side as backup. But as the drummer, you oftentimes have to set up the changes of phrases and things and know the changes of feels. So it's important to get your head out of the book if possible.
Right. Yeah, I get the impression that you really, obviously listening is the most important part. I mean, just the way
Yeah.
you've described how you prepare, it sounds like having an ear for it is more important than anything else.
Yeah.
From my observations and from some of the teaching I've received, I didn't realize just how visual things are when you're playing with other people.
Oh yeah.
And I've since I kind of learned that, which is a few years ago now, I watch you guys when you play, for example, or when any band that I watch, and I watch
Yeah.
them making eye contact, and I watch drummers in particular seem to have their head on a swivel a lot of times. And again, I probably also depending on how many players there are in the band, but
Yeah,
I had
absolutely.
no idea how important that was.
Yeah, it's you could see kind of like who your friends are on stage by like who's turning around and giving you a look and being a good teammate and letting here comes that change, or that sort of thing. Or sometimes and other times sometimes people are just lost in it, which happens.
Sure.
Um,
Well, that's also part
but
of the fun, right?
it's great when people are present and they can give you a helping hand.
It seems to me that the music scene in this area, this is not the right word to use, but is a bit incestuous. You see a
Yeah.
lot of people playing
Oh
with
yeah.
each other and playing in other bands or starting new things. Do you find that to be helpful when you have to step in, particularly if you don't get much rehearsal?
Yeah, certainly, because I've sat in with other groups before, like Big Lanyap, or even when we first started with Dan Doherty, and most recently the Sadie and the Stark project. Those types of things, they're different languages almost, and so you have to have your ears open a little bit more and think a little bit differently. But since Brent and I did have a past, and even Jeff, the bass player, he was in my surf rock band, the Real Gone.
Right.
So I had some sensibility about his style of playing. There was a language there that was already sort of had a foothold. So when I first started learning all those tunes, I had a good sensibility about where the changes were going to occur and what the arrangements were. So they seemed very natural to me.
Yeah.
Even though it was like learning 30 original songs or whatever, it did come natural to a sense, just from knowing sort of Brent's songwriting.
Yeah, that's another band that I really enjoyed watching you play was The Real Gone, which was surf rock.
Yeah.
So again, you kind of run the gamut as far as musical genres are concerned. But that was also a large band, right? Weren't there quite a few players in that band?
The largest we got was 5-piece. It was typically 2 guitars. Well, actually, now that I think about it, maybe at our largest we had 2 guitarists, a sax player, bass player, and drums. So I guess 5-piece at its largest. At its smallest, for a long time, we're a 3-piece.
Oh, see, I must have only seen you guys play live with the larger band because it always seemed crowded.
Yeah.
And again, part of it is where you're playing, and Chicago Street Pub is one of the places where I get to see a lot of local live music.
Yeah.
And that's a little tight up there, regardless.
Oh,
but,
yeah.
I know that band and Stone City Stragglers always seemed to me to have so many people on stage when you guys were playing.
Oh, yeah. That was a tight setup at the pub. So we had, we had Allie, Brent, Karen, Johnny, myself, and what am I missing?
I feel like there was one more person, and I can't think of who it was either.
Karen, Brent, Allie, Phil. There we go.
That was Phil. Yes.
Can't forget Phil.
And because Phil played with The Real Gone as well.
Correct. Yeah.
Now, is he in another one of your bands that you're playing with occasionally now as well?
Not at the moment. He's got a couple other projects. He's got a Ween cover band called Fluffy.
Oh, yeah, sure. I've heard of them. I haven't seen them play, actually. There's 2 preference questions I have for you. One of them is, do you have a preference as to the size of the band? In other words, do you prefer to play with a 3-piece band, or do you like it when you're jammed up there with 6 or 7 people? Or what is one more fun than the other? Or is there any personal preference on you?
It kind of depends, I mean, all music's fun, so it just kind of depends on what suits the genre. I mean, recently I was woodshedding with an organist, and I was just about to book us to play out, and it was just going to be a duo.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, that didn't see the light of day. So I'm trying to make that happen again, and so I'm reaching out to an organist right now, and hopefully I can get that going.
Yeah, but I hope so.
Yeah, so the only thing that I don't know that I'm comfortable with is going solo up there at any time soon. But
you never know, though, right? I mean, it could happen.
I mean, technology today.
Well, yeah, particularly because of the other things you're doing musically, you're certainly in a position where you could create. I think electronically or otherwise, you could be in a position where you could be up there. Do you sing at all?
I don't. Yeah, no, I have. Sung in the microphone, but I wouldn't call myself a singer.
Fair enough. Well, it seems like you got a lot of other things going on, so I don't think that's awful. Do you have a favorite genre? And again, I know you love all music. I can just tell by virtue of all the different things you've done. But is there something you have more fun playing in general, or
playing?
Or playing live, or is there anything, or do you have preferences in that regard with respect to the kinds of music you know?
I mean, when it comes to actually playing, what I enjoy playing most probably falls into the soul and funk and R&B realm, but I don't get to do it as often as I would like. And the closest thing that falls into that realm right now is the brass band.
Yeah.
And for years, my dream would be to find that, the ultimate vocalist that is just a soul R&B, slayer.
I love that type of music as well. And that is one, when you think about what you can watch at least or go to see locally, not as much at least down here in the Joliet area.
No.
There's who am I trying to think of up in Chicago? Have you ever listened to J.C. Brooks?
Oh yeah.
I love those guys, and I've seen them live once. I saw them in a kind of a basement club in Chicago about 4 or 5 years ago. And I love them recorded. I've loved their studio stuff, but I got to see them live, and I was like, this is a band I want to come see again.
Right.
That would be be nice to have somebody playing that kind of stuff down here. It would make it a little easier as I get older to I'd rather stay in the neighborhood if I can.
Yeah.
How far afield do you go with the various bands that you're playing with? Do you tend to stay here in the kind of Will County, Joliet area? Are you playing? You're not touring, obviously. You got a family, you got a job. It's tough to get out too far. But do you find yourself playing outside of the local environs?
Yeah, I guess since the time I made the conscious decision of finding more work that was actually going to, pay, it pulled me more away from the city because it's more and more difficult to find working gigs in the city, unless you're kind of like a corporate band or a wedding band or special band that's playing a bunch of covers and being hired for that sort of entertainment. So more and more, it seemed to make more sense to play out in the suburbs where those opportunities existed a lot more. And it's mostly around here, and then the hillbillies go a little bit south. We'll play like in Seneca,
right?
Shanahan, and I don't know if there's some place that we play that's like in Sandwich or something like that. I don't know if that's, I'd rather drive an hour or so south, I think, these days, rather than
up to the city.
It's got to be, for the right thing, and sure. We can get gigs all the time in the city that don't pay or on the bill with like 3 other bands, and the sound guys get paid more than the bands are. But
yeah, it's nice. From the outside, it seems very nice to be a what I would call a regional band that has a strong following, and I think that Righteous Hillbillies is one of those bands. You guys, as I've seen it, I mean, I typically only see you play in a couple different locations, but I know, just because I follow social media, that there's a set of venues that Righteous Hillbillies play every year. And when I see the video, when I see the photos, it's always a nice crowd. Everybody knows the songs. Everybody,
right.
And when there's new songs coming out, they support the hell out of it. It seems like kind of a nice niche to have, especially again, if you're not in a position where you're going to tour the country. It seems like a lot of fun to me.
Yeah. Bret and all the previous crew he's had, both that helped out with the band and were in the band. He's had various lineups. They've all done a great job cultivating that following.
Yeah, I can tell.
They're pretty loyal.
Well, I think we need to move on to a very important aspect of our podcast. As I mentioned in the introduction, Chris is not with us, but because of your immersion in pop music and so many genres of pop music, we do want to do a special playlist. I asked you to provide us with a theme, something that we could each pick a few songs and put together a playlist, which will end up streaming wherever you stream your music, Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube Music, Amazon Music. You came up with, well, when you texted me the idea and then defined it for me, I think my response was, Bret, you found your people. So the title of the playlist that will end up getting posted, actually will be up by the time you hear this podcast episode, is going to be 3 a.m. music. Why don't you tell the listeners what your concept was when you said 3 a.m. music?
Sure thing. So one of my favorite artists is an artist named Mark Lanigan, and he put out an album. I was still in high school. It's called Whiskey for the Holy Ghost. And that album had a great impact on me. And it still hits me every time I listen to it. But the album cover is a bottle of whiskey, an ashtray with a cigarette smoke, and I don't know exactly what else, but that's what I remember like right now. And the sound of that album and the sound of his voice just sounds like a person sitting up 3 a.m. haunted by life choices, and maybe has been making some poor choices about what they're putting into their body. And so, therefore, sad, melancholic songs are induced.
if that ever becomes a specific musical genre, Chris will he will stand right up and claim that's his favorite genre of music. So
Love it.
he's a little bummed out he's not here
Ugh.
to discuss his songs at length, but he did give me his choices for 3 a.m. music.
Oh, great.
And I'm going to do both of ours. As we've done in the past, what I'm going to do is I'm going to have you give us the first song for the playlist. We're going to alternate as we go through, and you get the honor of the final song for the playlist as well. Whatever you want to say about the songs themselves, feel free. With Chris's picks, I'm just going to name them, and later on down the line, he may want to explain more thoroughly why he thinks they're good 3 a.m. songs. So what's your first song then for the playlist?
All right, let me pull up the email here because I don't have it directly in front of me.
No problem, no problem. And I've got the list too, so I've got a little bit of a cheat sheet in front of me if you need help.
Oh, okay. Let's see.
Because the first one is the artist you named already. Is a Mark Lanegan song.
Yeah, let's see. Yeah. Oh, Riding on the Nightingale. That's right. So, I mean, there's so many, I think, Mark Lanegan songs that are appropriate here just due to the nature of the man's voice and the general topics in which he writes about. This is like, it's got this like slow, moody, ethereal, like picking, it's not like a strummed song.
Right.
And he's singing these like long held out tones and just like lyrically, I didn't write down any of the lyrics. I should have had the lyrics in front of me and things like that. But just overall, the mood about the entire thing. And then there's a female voice that comes in later. It's just great.
Yeah, there's nothing I like better than a mournful song. Like I said, when you suggested that as the theme, Chris and I were both like, all right, we can find some stuff. Just from old playlists we've exchanged between ourselves, we can come up with our list. So that'll be the first song on the list. Chris's first choice for the playlist is called Goodbye. It's from the album Banjos and Sunshine, which came out in 1999 by a band called 60 Acres.
Oh, I'm not familiar.
I love the band. I know the band 60 Acres, but I can't place the song. I didn't get a chance to listen to it before we recorded today. But 60 Acres is a great kind of all-country band. And again, knowing
Gotcha.
Chris, it's squarely in your theme. I'm sure of that. And then my first choice is a song called Golden Age from the album Utah by Jamestown Revival. Came out in 2014. It's to me, Jamestown Revival isn't necessarily a famous band, but they are an Americana band that's, they've gotten at least a little bit of acclaim. And as far as I'm concerned, they're a ripoff of Stone City Stragglers. I think everything they do, which I love, and I listen to their stuff still to this day. I think you guys did better when Stone City Stragglers was around. It's a great song. It is a kind of sad, appropriate 3 a.m. song, but they've also got some really good up-tempo stuff, and the instrumentation seems a lot like what you guys had in that band back then. So that's my choice. My first choice for the playlist is Golden Age from Utah.
I'll have to give that a listen. I'm not familiar with them.
Yeah, I'll send you a link or a Spotify link or something.
Cool.
And not to mention, by the time this comes out, you'll be able to listen to them on the playlist.
Yes.
So what's your next pick?
So my next sort of all-time favorite voice in the music world is Nico Case. I can't. She's one of those desert island voices that if I had with hearing somebody sing for the rest of my life, that'd be fine with me. So I've seen her many times, including early on in her career. I went with Brent, actually. Brent's the one that introduced me to her music, and we went to Fitzgerald's and saw her there just as a three-piece. It was her and Tom V. Ray and John Rouse, and it was great. I never seen a person command the stage in that way. Yeah,
I've seen her live a couple times as well, because I think she's still based out of Chicago, if I'm not mistaken, or at least she was at one point. Well, Chris and I just recently, actually just a couple episodes ago, we did an episode about Bloodshot Records. And
I listened to that.
We did a draft from there, and Nico Case was one of the top people we talked about. I agree with you about her voice; it's just phenomenal.
Yeah, her and Kelly Hogan and Nora are fantastic. But I chose Nico Case South Tacoma way. I mean, there's just, again, there's too many to pick from, so it was hard to narrow down. But I picked.
Yeah, that's always the problem.
Yeah,
Yeah, I saw her. I think I saw. Well, I don't know if I saw her sing that song, but I saw her at the Hideout. She would play at the Hideout.
Oh yeah,
the Bloodshed Bands. And again, that's a small venue. What a cool place to see her and listen to her sing.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
So basically I picked that one because of the lyrics. There's a line about not making it to your funeral that just like every time gets me.
That's a great choice. All right, Chris's next choice is a song called "Straight to Hell" from Mystery Road, which came out in 1989 by Drivin' and Crying. And that band definitely knows how to do a 3 a.m. song, as far as I'm concerned. So that's his choice. And my choice, which is now I think we're up to the 6th song on the playlist, is a Lyle Lovett song from Joshua Judge's Ruth, which came out in 1992. The song is "She's Already Made Up Her Mind." That is literally a 3 a.m. song for me because I broke up with my girlfriend, who, by the way, is now my wife. So there's a happy ending.
There you go.
But I want to say a month straight, I listened to "She's Already Made Up Her Mind," and always between about midnight and 3. And I just, I was the saddest puppy you've ever seen in your life. And that song captures that. And when you said 3 a.m. music, that's the first song that I thought of.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So that's from Joshua Judge's Ruth, as I said, by Lyle Lovett.
You lived it.
I did. I lived that one. Which brings you to choice number 7, 7th song on the playlist.
All right. So this would be Tom Waits' "Clap Hands."
It's awesome.
I love Tom Waits. And again, another difficult choice. There are so many to choose from his catalog that suit that. I almost picked something off of The Black Rider, which was that's a dark album. But I chose this instead.
Yeah, I love Tom Waits. I'm such a huge fan of his. In fact, I was just talking about him in a prior episode. I think it was. Oh, I know. He did kind of a pseudo live album called Nighthawks at the Diner.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And before I got your list, even I looked at a couple songs from there because again, that one had that kind of boozy late night feel to it. That whole album feels that way. So but I love Clap Hands. I think that's a great Tom Waits song as well. I think that's a cool choice.
Cool.
So Chris's final choice for the special playlist is "There Is a Treasure" from "Thank God We Left the Garden" by Jeffrey Martin. Do you know Jeffrey Martin at all?
No, I'm not familiar.
I didn't either until Chris introduced me to him, and he's awesome. And he's got one of those voices you're talking about. He's got a real kind of lonely voice. And, he does like a lot of kind of stripped down, pretty acoustic stuff. He's got that lonely feeling to almost everything he sings. That's a good choice as well.
I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, Jeffrey Martin. And then I went way back to 1977 for my final song for the playlist, which is "The Road" from "Running on Empty" by Jackson Browne.
Oh, nice.
Because to me, again, that has that real melancholy feel. That's the tour song where they're on the bus and just going from town to town.
Yeah,
and, that was. Actually, I think it was the second thing I thought of after you described the theme we were going to do. So my choice is classic Jackson Browne, "The Road," which allows you to cap off the playlist.
All right. So this is Monks of Doom, "Fall from Grace." Are you familiar with Monks of Doom?
I'm not. And I didn't get a chance to listen to it before we recorded. So it's on my list.
That's okay. So Monks of Doom is pretty much a spin-off of Camper Van Beethoven.
Okay. Yeah, I do know them.
Okay. And while Camper Van Beethoven would be recording records, the rest of the band, along with another fellow who would go on to play with Counting Crows and John Hyatt, would play as Monks of Doom and have recorded some albums. But this tune in particular has a very ethereal tone quality to it, and the lyrics are pretty moody. You just picture yourself sitting there thinking about poor choices and falling from grace. So
excellent. Well, I'm telling you, this is going to rival our best special playlist. I really like the songs I know I think are perfect for it, and I'm looking forward to the 2 or 3 songs that I don't know. I can't wait to hear them.
Yeah, there were many artists that I had to like weed out. I had some PJ Harvey and Los Lobos and
Oh yeah, that would have been
Latin
good.
Playboys and a few other things. I was just like, how do I?
Yeah, that's why it's fun to do this on a regular basis, because Chris and I get to take other bites at the apple. I'll think of a song that I don't put on this one, but I'll set it aside. I'm like, I'm gonna put that in something else.
Oh, that's smart.
So anyway, again, this playlist will be published on Spotify, on Apple Music, on Amazon Music, basically wherever you stream your music. It'll be titled 3 a.m. Music, a third song in playlist. So if you search those words, you should be able to find it. And when you do listen to it, please let us know. Email us or contact us through the website or through Facebook and tell us what you think of this particular playlist, because I think this is a good one. So next up, we have our pop culture recommendations. Every episode this season, we're recommending something from the aughts. This is our 6th episode. Our recommendations come from 2006. As I mentioned earlier, Chris is not with us. He is going to join me a little bit later in the episode and to tell us about what he wants to recommend from 2006. But luckily, Bret's got his own recommendations. So what do you like from 06?
So my pick is Little Miss Sunshine. I thought it was a fantastic film. It was a weird thing when it came out, and it was this weird little indie film that just kind of broke through. I probably due mostly to the cast, which had it had like Steve Carell and a young Paul Dano.
Right, Dano, Abigail Breslin.
Yeah, and Dano's performance was just insanely good, because he was this sullen teenage boy.
Yes, he was perfect.
Yeah, and the story had a good twist to it and everything. And on top of all of that, I can't forget Alan Arkin, right?
Right. Alan Arkin, Greg Kinnear was in that movie.
Yeah. And on top of it, just being a great story, well acted, all that sort of thing. The music on the film, Devachka, which I was familiar with at the time and really, really enjoyed, provided a lot of the music for the film. But the breakout song of an artist that I did not know, which kind of changed my life, was Sufjan Stevens' hit Chicago.
Yeah, what a great song that is.
Oh, man. Like, every time that song gets me. And hearing that song, I just had to do a deep dive on his stuff. And so when his album Illinois, that album literally changed my life. Like, the production, which is kind of a lo-fi production,
right? But
his arrangements and the instrumentation and just the folk, it's like folk classical music. It's really an amazing accomplishment.
My daughter Anna, that's her favorite album of all time. She I don't even know exactly when she discovered it, but I know that when she moved to Philadelphia to go to college, that was her lifeline home, was that album and the song Chicago. I bet you she listens to it. I bet you she still listens to it once a week, without a doubt.
That's
great album. Yeah, and I forgot, truthfully, when I saw that this was your pick, I remembered the movie, of course, because it actually won a couple Oscars. It came out of nowhere, and I remember it being a big deal. But I forgot about the soundtrack, and I did not remember that song was on that film. So now I'm going to go back and rewatch the movie just because I need to put it back in context.
Yeah, and I don't know if your daughter's aware of it, but there's a companion album called Avalanche that is a lot of the outtakes from the Illinois album that is just as good.
I bet you she knows it, but I didn't know it. So I'm gonna check that out. That's fantastic.
Yeah,
that's a good choice. That's a great 2006 choice. Again, kind of a cool film that it was an indie movie, although, like you said, pretty big cast. So no way it was going to go under the radar, I guess. And Alan Arkin, I think, won for Best Supporting Actor. But it's kind of a small story.
Yeah.
As opposed to, lots of times the Oscar winners are these big grand spectacles, and it wasn't that at all.
No.
I really, it's been a long time since I watched it. I'm going to go back and watch it. I'm going to go ahead and give my recommendation as well, and that is a novel written by Cormac McCarthy. Listeners of the podcast will know he's one of my favorite American authors for sure. But the book that he wrote that came out in 2006 is The Road, which is frankly one of my favorite of his books, but also very different than, if you've ever read any Cormac McCarthy, he was always kind of a modern Western kind of writer. He wrote All the Pretty Horses, which was turned into a film. He wrote Suttree. He wrote a lot of Westerns that were either set kind of back in the late 1800s, but also those that some were set like in the mid 1900s. He's got it's a really good 3 a.m. book, this book, The Road.
Okay.
It's post-apocalyptic. It's very depressing, frankly. But it's also very, I don't know, it's weirdly quiet. There's not a lot of dialogue. It's a story of a man and his son as they're trying to traverse the eastern United States to find safety after some horrible cataclysm that I don't think they ever actually quite describe what happened, but it's clearly bad.
Yeah.
and it had been bad for years before this. It won the Pulitzer Prize in 2007. Wow. And it was made into a film in 2009. And I think the movie does a pretty good job of capturing the book. But if you want to read a 3 a.m. book, I would recommend The Road. And probably anything written by Cormac McCarthy, but in particular, it's a great read. So
nice. Is the film the same name?
Yes, also called The Road.
Okay.
It did pretty well, I think, as well. Again, sometimes movies don't do a great job of capturing the book, but maybe it's just the way he writes, but both All the Pretty Horses and The Road, I think, are good film adaptations of really, really excellent books. So, and then Chris will catch up with me a little bit later, and we'll get his recommendation from that year. But that takes us to our next segment, which we call Staff Picks. Just around the corner from you. So staff picks are our opportunity to make a recommendation of something that, generally speaking, we try to come up with something that's relatively new. These days, sometimes we'll reach back to something that's older, but we don't think people have been made aware of. So lots of times it's an artist or a band that's just come out with a new album, or there's a new novel that comes out, or something along those lines. You, I think, have something for us to talk about, to listen to.
Yeah, I have a couple of things that came across my Bandcamp feed. I follow I guess it's a label called Analog Africa on Bandcamp. Mm-hmm. They put out a lot of great material, but it looks like they have a record coming out called Roots Rockin' Zimbabwe, and just great African pop music. Sounds like it's probably mostly guitar driven. From I think it's 1975 to 1980. So yeah, it sounds like it's gonna be really good. There's some samples on Bandcamp if you look it up under Analog Africa.
Yeah, it looks like it's coming out maybe in May, the whole album. Because I did catch this and I listened to this to the song that they've released. So it's like one single that they've released, and I loved it. I thought it was really cool.
Yeah, and it kind of sounds like I think the type of music is called high life music from Africa, from the period. Okay. I think that's what it's called. I studied some ethnomusicology in college. I took a couple semesters, but so I think that's what it would be considered. But great stuff. So I'm looking forward to that. And then my second pick is another Bandcamp suggestion that came across my feed. Female artist named Eska, I think is how you pronounce it.
Yeah, it looks like it.
I want to say she's a British artist, and I don't think she's put out a ton of stuff. And I think I read up on her that she's done like a lot of collab stuff, and then will put out some solo material. But she's got an upcoming album that's coming out that looks like the title is The Ordinary Life of a Magic Woman. But it's modern electro pop, I guess. I don't know how you'd really. I hate trying to place.
Yeah, it's hard to compartmentalize and stuff like that.
Yeah,
that's another one where I think there's one song out right now on Bandcamp
Yeah.
You provided me the link, so I listened to that, and yeah, I'm looking forward to that too because it does. You're right; it's kind of genreless, kind of hard to pigeonhole it. But I thought it was
Absolutely.
good.
And yeah, I'm spinning through stuff all the time trying to find new stuff. And so I'm listening to just like production and sounds and like, is this interesting? Does it, how do I feel when I'm listening to it? Like, I don't really care about genre or anything. And so this caught my ear. So
Yeah, I think it's a great recommendation. I hope people go to Bandcamp. We will your staff pick along with Chris's staff pick and mine as well on our website at www.thirdsonginpodcast.com. There's a drop-down menu where I think it's called From the Episode, and all of our staff picks for the season will be there. So we'll try to include a link to the Bandcamp pages for both of those. I've listened to what's available right now because I think both of those come out in May.
yeah,
so we're only a couple weeks away, but both very cool sounds. Both songs that I think I want to hear what else is out there. My staff pick for this week is a graphic novel called Minor Arcana or Arcana. It's written and drawn by a really talented comic book creator named Jeff Lemire. He's done a million different things. He kind of writes graphic novels in, again, all kinds of genres, lots of sci-fi, lots of weird fantasy. Some of it's just straightforward drama. I purchased the graphic novel because it just came out in hard copy just this last week. Typically what happens with me is if something comes out, but as an independent comic, I'll buy the first issue. And if I really like the first issue, I won't buy any more issues. I'll wait until they put them all together in a graphic novel, in what they call a trade paperback. So it just came out. I think the first 6 issues are out now in a paperback. And all I can tell you, having only read the first issue of the comic way back when, probably about 6 months ago, it's really cool. It's really weird and creepy, and it's a girl coming home who's had a whole bunch of problems, I think substance abuse type problems. She comes home because her mom is sick, and her mom is a fortune teller in this tiny little town. And the girl comes back, and her mom wants her to take over for her, reading palms and looking in crystal balls. But as always, especially in comic books, turns out she has a gift, and there's like weird, creepy stuff that happens. So, and Jeff Lemire's art is really cool too. It's really kind of sketchy. I don't know how else to describe it. It's not pretty. And he's done a whole bunch of other work. I could recommend a million of his graphic novels that he's also done. But for today, my stat pick is Minor Arcana, which just came out just about a week or two prior to our recording this here in April. Chris also has a staff pick, and he and I will talk about that pretty soon.
Cool.
So I want to, before I forget, go back and plug some stuff for Bret Figura. In particular, look for his Bandcamp page, which is bretfigura.bandcamp.com. That's where you can find musical releases for all kinds of genres of music. The best place to look for his gigs and other projects when you're looking for dates to see him play live is his Facebook group page. I have it down as Figura Phonics.
That's it.
That's it? Good. I think.
Sorry, I misspoke.
That's all right. That's why we do it twice. Facebook.com/groups/Figura Phonics. We'll put both of those links on our As Mentioned page on the website. So if I'm speaking too fast or you didn't write it down, you can find it at thirdsonginpodcast.com. There also is a Spotify link to the latest release from Dan Gauguin and the Dan Gauguin Band. Am I saying that?
You got it. Yep. Soundtrack to the film Misdemeanor.
Nice. So that also, we're going to put that link up there too, so everybody can find it. And the Dan Doherty Band is playing at CBAM on May 16th at the Roxy Theater in Lockport. Don't forget to go see that, because that should be fun, both to see the band and also to check out the comic book art and talk to the creators that are there. This is an event that I think is getting bigger and bigger, it sounds like.
Yeah, it should be a lot of fun.
And please don't forget to listen all the way to the end of the episode, where we will have the newest song from Bret Figura, Elegy to Too Many Things Right Now, Take Your Pick. It's a great piece of music, and you can find links to that and everything else on our as mentioned page. So I really want to thank you, Bret, and I really appreciate you showing up.
No, I appreciate you having me, and thank you for supporting local music and us local artists and doing this.
And now, batting cleanup, Chris Derrickson has joined the podcast to inform us about his recommendations and his staff picks, and of course, our picks for the playlist. Welcome back, bud.
Thanks, man. Hop right into it. So for 2006, it was a fairly easy choice for me. I loved the Little Miss Sunshine recommendation, and I wasn't surprised at all by The Road, your pick. But Four Thieves Gone, the Robbinsville Sessions by the Avett Brothers was an easy choice. It's one of my favorite albums of all time. It was one of those where I went in, didn't know anything about the band. I was looking at a Borders, which shows how old I am. Found the CD, was intrigued by it, bought it, went back and listened to it. And from the opening song, which is Talk on Indolence, which I think I've talked about in a podcast, or sorry, a blog.
Yeah, you wrote about it.
Blasting in my car and my kids just banging their head in the back. I won't dive into it too much, but it's still my favorite album of theirs. It turned me on to that sound as an area that I started trying to find, and they're a very unique band. I've seen them live once. I've seen a couple of their splinter groups where the individual artists go off and do side sessions, and great musicians, great album. So that's my recommendation for 2006.
You know, I love Avett Brothers, and I was going to ask if you'd seen them live because I've never seen them live. I've been given the impression that they're kind of Fish-like or Grateful Dead-like at this point. That there are people who literally follow them around when they tour, like in the summers. Did you see a show like that? That was a kind of a bigger show, a stadium type show, or?
No, it was. I saw them earlier, a little bit earlier on. That was a fantastic show. But I should look it up. But the bass player did this side project with some, I don't remember the name of it, some older school country guys, and it was great. Like they were both really, really good shows. So it's funny, we have an IT guy in our office. He is one of those Avett Brothers fans. He has gone to like probably 40 or 50 shows.
Yeah.
He would go, they always have a special New Year's Eve show. I think it's in Greensboro, but I could be wrong. I've never gone, but he is like, he knows, he's just way over the top with how into them.
Yeah,
and
that's wild.
They've sort of gone they're a little more than what I thought I was discovering back in 2006. So
does it seem like live, are they jam bandy? I mean, is that part of with the appeal?
A little bit. I'd actually had I think, and I don't know what the appeal is for everyone, but I tried, there was a woman I worked with at UNC. She was actually my boss at the time, and she was all into music and traveled all around. And she did not like the Avett Brothers. She said they were too jammy, like they were too much like a jam band. So, and she had gone to seen them at least once or twice with her husband, and she just wasn't into them. But when they hit it right, they make as good a music as anyone, I feel.
Yeah, their studio stuff is great and doesn't feel that way to me. That's why I wondered about that. But yeah, I have a friend of a friend she's probably seen them a dozen times or more, and she's barely younger than me, and just is a huge fan of their live shows. But I'm not sure I would like the live show as much as the albums based on that. So that would take us to our staff picks. Just around the corner from you. Both Bret and I gave some staff picks earlier. What do you have for us?
Well, inadvertently, I chose someone who reminds me a little bit of Bret. His name is Drew Heracall. He put out a 4-song EP on our vinyl, and he's a studio musician who's made good. It's a really good album. But if you read his bio, he started playing piano when he was 8. He started as a professional musician when he was 17. He's played with a ton of artists as a studio musician. Obviously, very, very well respected. The album that he put out, the EP he put out, it's got some really subtle but beautiful guitar behind the scene. It's definitely an acoustic first, and I think he's trying to emphasize the songwriting, which I think is pretty solid. But if you can listen not quite the background, but he's, I think, making a point of having the guitar not overwhelm. You can tell he's a fantastic guitarist. So when I was listening to the interview and how early Bret started and all the bands he's been in and everything, and I picked this guy before I knew all that stuff. It was cool to listen to someone whose entire life, all the way back to when he's in high school, teenage years, has been about music. I think that's the sort of stuff that at least I've dreamed about, but I couldn't play a note if my life depended on it.
Right. Right. Awesome. Well, that's a guy I've not heard of at all. So is it called Our Vinyl Sessions? Is it one of those? I know they do.
Yeah,
those.
it's just called Drew Heracall Our Vinyl Sessions.
Cool. Well, all three of our staff picks will be up on the website, and by the time you listen to this episode. And then finally, the most important part, the anchor of the show, it is time for our playlist picks. Chris and I will both pick a song, and we will add it to our Season 7 playlist, which you can find wherever you stream your music. My choice for the playlist is consistent with our theme of 3 a.m. music. It's one of the most 3 a.m. songs I probably ever listened to in my life. The song is Sonic Boom from Billy's Live Bait in 1990, written by the Gear Daddies. So that'll be on the playlist for this episode.
It's a fantastic choice. Mine, fairly easy too. It's a song, I think they're from out where we were in school. I think they're from St. Louis or close out that way. Last Train Home, the song True North from the 1999 album called the same, True North. It's about a guy that is about to get married, shows up at his fiance's house, and she basically tells him that she can't see spending the rest of her life with him. And then they both regret it the rest of their lives. It's a sad ass song.
Perfect 3 a.m.
Perfect for
song.
3 a.m. drunkenness and melancholy.
I was gonna say, as Bret said, whiskey and cigarette smoke.
Apologize that I had to miss the interview, but I want to extend a huge thank you to Bret. Listened through very interesting stuff. And I also want to extend a thanks to my co-host, Tom. Sorry I left you out there on an island. You did a really nice job. I think it's one of our more interesting interviews that we've done, and I've been checking out some of Bret's stuff, and I encourage folks to look at our website. The As Mentioned page will have links to all the information that we just discussed with Bret in this interview.
Third Song In is recorded in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, and Joliet, Illinois. We've got an email address at thirdsongin@gmail.com. Please email us your thoughts, questions, comments, whether they be about Bret or his bands or anything else associated with the podcast. Please let us know what you think. You can listen to us on all the streamers. You can listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Amazon Music, YouTube Music. Please listen to the podcast. Please download us, rate and review the podcast. Give us all your goddamn stars. Feel free to comment and let us know what you think.
Check out our website, thirdsonginpodcast.com. Other than the fact that it is Steelers black and gold, it's a pretty cool site. Got a lot of information about the podcast, including our recommendations, our staff picks. Stay tuned for the end of this podcast. We have a special song from Bret to check out.
We also have a Facebook page. Follow us there. And you can find our weekly blog both on the website and on Substack. Please subscribe on either or both of those places.
You've been listening to Third Song In with Chris Derrickson and Tom Polachek. Thanks for listening.